Welcome to our channel. Today, we pause to remember a life that touched hearts and left a lasting impact. We'll explore their journey, the challenges they faced, and the moments that made them unforgettable. Join us as we honor their story, celebrate their legacy, and reflect on the memories that will continue to inspire and live on in the hearts of those who knew them. The news was confirmed quietly in the early morning hours. In Los Angeles, where cameras once followed his every move, the lights felt a little dimmer. Eric Dane, the actor known to millions as Dr. Mark Sloan, had passed away. He was 53. According to family representatives, he died peacefully after ongoing health complications. Those close to him said he was surrounded by loved ones. In a short statement, his family shared, Eric faced his health battle with courage and grace. He was a devoted father, a loyal friend, and an artist who gave everything to his work. For many viewers, Eric Dane will always be remembered as McSteamy on Grey's Anatomy. When he first appeared on the hit medical drama, his character was confident, charming, and complicated. But over time, Dr. Mark Sloan became more than a nickname. He became human. Audiences watched him fall in love. They watched him make mistakes. They watched him grow. In hospital hallways filled with heartbreak and hope, Dane brought warmth and depth to a role that could have easily stayed surface level. Instead, he made it real. Producers once described him as a steady presence on set. Co-stars often spoke about his humor between takes. One former castmate shared online, "Eric had this way of making everyone feel at ease. He made long days lighter." But his career did not begin or end at Seattle Grace Hospital. Before his breakout role, Dane appeared in television series and smaller film parts, building his craft slowly. He worked steadily, taking on roles that allowed him to explore strength and vulnerability. He was not an overnight success. He earned his place. Years later, a new generation came to know him through HBO's Euphoria. In the series, he played Cal Jacobs, a deeply flawed father struggling with secrets and control. The role was darker, more intense. It showed a different side of him. Critics praised his performance. Viewers saw an actor unafraid to explore discomfort. It was a reminder that Eric Dane was more than a television heartthrob. He was a performer willing to take risks. In interviews, he spoke openly about personal struggles, including battles with addiction and health challenges. He did not hide from those conversations. Instead, he addressed them with honesty. "I've made mistakes," he once said, "but I've also learned a lot about who I am." That honesty made him relatable. Behind the fame was a father devoted to his children. Friends say he often put family first, stepping away from the spotlight when needed. A longtime friend shared, "At the end of the day, Eric's proudest role was being a dad." As news of his passing spread, tributes filled social media. Fans posted favorite scenes from Grey's Anatomy. Others shared clips from Euphoria. Many wrote about how his characters helped them through difficult times. One fan wrote, "Mark Sloan taught me that people can change. Thank you for bringing him to life." Another said simply, "You were part of our Thursday nights for years. We won't forget you." Television has a unique way of entering people's homes. Week after week, characters become familiar. They feel like friends. For nearly 2 decades, Eric Dane was one of those familiar faces. His career reflected the changing face of modern drama. From network television to streaming platforms, he adapted. He evolved. He remained relevant in an industry that often moves quickly. Yet through all the changes, his presence stayed steady. A calm confidence. A quiet intensity. His passing is not just the loss of an actor. It is the closing of a chapter for fans who grew up watching his stories unfold. The hospital corridors of Grey's Anatomy will always echo with his characters' laughter. The difficult silences of Euphoria will carry traces of his layered performance. In the days following his death, colleagues remembered not only his talent, but his kindness. One producer said, "Eric brought depth to every role. But more than that, he brought heart." And perhaps that is how he will be remembered. As a man who embraced complex characters. As an actor who was willing to show imperfection. As a father and friend who valued real connection over fame. The screen may go dark. The episodes may end. But the stories remain. Eric Dane leaves behind performances that will continue to stream, replay, and live on in living rooms around the world. In every scene filled with tension or tenderness, there is a reminder of what he gave to his craft. And in the quiet after the credits roll, his legacy remains, not only as television's complicated hero, but as a presence that shaped an era of modern drama. He will be remembered. The news was shared with quiet dignity in New Orleans. In the city he loved and helped rebuild, Norman C. Francis had passed away. He was 93. Family members confirmed that he died peacefully, surrounded by those closest to him. In a brief statement, they said, "Dr. Francis believed in faith, education, and the power of young people. His life's work was lifting others." Across Louisiana, flags were lowered, and tributes began to pour in. For nearly 5 decades, Norman C. Francis served as president of Xavier University of Louisiana. When he took office in 1968, the nation was in turmoil. The civil rights movement had changed laws, but the work of equality was far from complete. At Xavier, he saw education as a path forward. He became the first Black and first lay president of a Catholic university in the United States. It was a historic moment. But for Francis, the focus was never on titles. It was on students. Under his leadership, Xavier grew into a national leader in science and health education. The university became known for sending more African American graduates to medical school than almost any other institution in the country. Classrooms filled with ambition. Hallways echoed with hope. Colleagues described him as calm and steady. He spoke softly, but his words carried weight. "Education is the great equalizer," he often said. And he worked every day to make that belief real. Then came 2005. When Hurricane Katrina struck the Gulf Coast, it changed New Orleans forever. Floodwaters covered neighborhoods. Homes were lost. Xavier's campus was badly damaged. For many institutions, it could have meant the end. But Norman C. Francis refused to give up. In the days after the storm, he promised students that Xavier would reopen. Even when buildings were destroyed and resources were limited, he held on to that promise. Classes resumed just months later. It was a powerful sign of resilience. One faculty member later recalled, "Dr. Francis never showed fear. He showed faith. That gave all of us strength." Students who returned to campus often said they came back because they believed in his leadership. Beyond Xavier, Francis became a voice in national conversations about recovery and rebuilding. Presidents sought his advice. Community leaders respected his wisdom. Yet he remained humble. He believed the true measure of success was not fame, but service. Throughout his career, he received many honors, including the Presidential Medal of Freedom. But those close to him say his proudest moments were graduation days. Watching students cross the stage. Seeing families celebrate new beginnings. A former student shared online, "Dr. Francis changed my life. He believed in me before I believed in myself." Another wrote, "He taught us that education is not just about jobs. It is about dignity." Even after stepping down as president in 2015, his presence remained strong on campus. He continued to mentor young leaders. He continued to speak about justice, faith, and opportunity. His leadership spanned nearly half a century. Through times of social change, through economic hardship, through natural disaster, he remained steady. Norman C. Francis did not seek the spotlight. Yet he became a symbol of perseverance in the American South. A bridge between generations. A reminder that institutions can survive when guided by courage and care. In New Orleans, where storms have tested the spirit of the people, his legacy stands firm. Xavier University continues to thrive. Its students continue to dream bigger because he once dared to believe in them. As tributes continue to flow, one message repeats itself: gratitude. Gratitude for a man who saw education as a mission. Gratitude for a leader who rebuilt not just buildings, but confidence. Gratitude for a life spent opening doors. Norman C. Francis leaves behind more than awards and titles. He leaves behind doctors, teachers, scientists, and community leaders who carry his lessons forward. And in every classroom at Xavier, in every graduate who walks across that stage, his quiet promise lives on, that hope, when protected and nurtured, can survive even the strongest storm. He will be remembered as an educator who rebuilt hope, and as a steady light for generations yet to come. The news was confirmed in Chicago, the city where his voice so often rose above the noise of injustice. Jesse Jackson had passed away at the age of 84. For many Americans, it felt like the end of an era. Family members shared that he died peacefully after ongoing health struggles. In a statement, they said, he fought for justice until his final days. His faith never wavered, and neither did his belief in the power of the people. Across the country, leaders paused to reflect on a life spent in public service. Jesse Jackson first stepped into the national spotlight during the Civil Rights Movement. Working closely with Martin Luther King Jr., he stood on the front lines of marches and voter registration drives. He was young, determined, and unafraid. After King's assassination in 1968, many wondered who would carry the message forward. Jackson chose to continue the work. He founded organizations aimed at economic empowerment and social justice. He traveled city to city, speaking about dignity, equality, and opportunity. His voice became familiar at rallies and conventions. It was strong. It was rhythmic. It carried both urgency and hope. In the 1980s, Jackson made history with his presidential campaigns. Though he did not win the nomination, he inspired millions of voters who had never before seen themselves reflected in national politics. His Rainbow Coalition called for unity across race, faith, and class. One supporter once said, "He made people believe they belonged at the table." That belief changed the political landscape. It opened doors for future generations of leaders. Jackson was not without critics. His long career included moments of controversy and debate. Yet even his opponents acknowledged his influence. He remained a persistent advocate for the poor, the marginalized, and the unheard. Through decades of activism, he stood beside striking workers, visited prisoners, and negotiated for the release of hostages overseas. He believed leadership meant showing up. A fellow civil rights leader shared after his passing, "Jesse never stopped pushing the nation to be better. He challenged power, but he also challenged us." Those words echoed across social media as tributes continued to pour in. In later years, Jackson faced serious health challenges, including a diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. Still, he appeared at public events when he could. His steps may have slowed, but his message remained steady. He often spoke about hope. "Keep hope alive," he would say to cheering crowds. It became more than a slogan. It became a promise. Students, activists, and young politicians credit him with shaping their path. One young organizer wrote online, "Because of Jesse Jackson, I believed my voice mattered." Another said, "He taught us that protest and policy must walk hand in hand." His life stretched across some of the most defining chapters in modern American history. From the marches of the 1960s to the campaigns of the 1980s and beyond, he remained present. He remained vocal. In Chicago, church bells rang in quiet tribute. Community members gathered to share stories of his visits to neighborhoods often overlooked. For them, he was not just a national figure. He was a neighbor. Jesse Jackson leaves behind a legacy built on courage and conviction. He believed democracy worked best when everyone had a seat and a say. He believed faith and justice belonged together. His voice, once carried through megaphones and microphones, now lives on in the leaders he inspired and the communities he uplifted. The marches will continue. The calls for fairness will not fall silent. And in the memory of those who heard him speak, who stood beside him in struggle, his message still rises, steady, determined, and full of hope. He will be remembered as a voice that refused to be silenced, and as a leader who urged a nation to keep hope alive.